Hi, and welcome to Complete and Cast, the official podcast for Complete and Box video games. I'm your host, Spencer, and today in episode 33, we're a little bit late to the parade, but we're talking about PlayStation VR. And here with me today, you might remember him from, I think it was episode 2 and 3. You were the very first guest to ever be on Complete and Cast. We have George Benn.
That is very true. I was the first.
You're the very
Here
very
again.
First. Man, isn't that crazy? And after Parker's been on a million times, you know, and a couple other people, you're back again. So, George has a PlayStation VR, and I do not. Ironic, obviously. And George, we had a couple of VR nights where George would bring over the VR, and we try different games and all that. And I think we've played enough to just kind of have a rough talk about it. We have our own opinions and all that kind of stuff. So. Today we're talking about PlayStation VR. If you haven't seen it, PlayStation VR is a big old headset that you put, on your head. It's kind of cool looking. It has different, lights and colors that are on it. You look almost like a robot.
Yeah, you look like you're out from outer space, pretty much.
Pretty much. And there's a bunch of different types of games. I guess there would be 3 different play styles. There's one where you pretty much just look around, and it's just your head movements determine what's going on the screen. Some of those games are more like interactive movies. Then
kind of like your Night Trap back in the day, but you're actually in the environment and you get to look around
PlayStation
and enjoy
VR
it.
Night Trap. Then you have games that you control with the controller, obviously, so you'll both look around with your head and then you use the controller for different stuff. And then my personal favorite, you have the ones that use the Move controllers.
Yes, that is one of my favorite. Anything related with the Move controllers makes the game feel so much better, so much nicer.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with that. So, like I said, bunch of different ways you can play it. I guess it gets kind of confusing because some games you'll be like, oh, I need the Move controllers, and some games you'll be like, oh, I don't need anything. So it can get a little wonky, but as long as you have all the equipment, it's a bunch of different ways to go with that. So let's start at the very beginning. The PlayStation Move came out in, I think, November or something like that.
Yeah, it came out around then. I waited personally a little bit to get it because I wanted to do a little more, see what games are out on it before I went and said, hey, let me go get this PlayStation VR.
But you eventually did pick it up, and my first question to you is, what had you excited enough to pick up the PlayStation VR?
The fact that it was a 3D world, kind of like the fact that you can just be in a different world. I was really happy to know that there's a Resident Evil coming out for it. That's the main reason why I wanted it. But I also wanted to enjoy other games to see how it was. Different gaming experience, pretty much. Instead of just sitting at your TV and playing, you can actually be in the environment.
Yeah, and stuff like that is kind of what drew me into it too. Especially, I think that you mentioning Resident Evil, it was huge because that game, all the other stuff that's out for it doesn't have that name appeal, but Resident Evil is a huge franchise, and people hearing that, oh, the new Resident Evil is going to be VR was huge. You really need that big namesake behind it with it. So, did you when you imagine playing the games, did you have a certain way you would imagine it being, and did it end up being that experience, or did it end up differing from how you imagined it would be?
Pretty much every experience for the VR that I wanted to see was actually what I wanted it to be. Like Resident Evil, scary. It drew you in. It made you scared. The shooter games are also something that's fun because you have the Move controllers and you actually feel like you're shooting something. There's a bunch of different games for it. There's so much to play, physically and digitally. Basically, it's hard to explain how I felt the first time because it's something new and you get really, really excited and you're happy and you're just like, man, this is so amazing. I mean, you should know when you tried it. How did you feel?
It was definitely weird. I'm glad that the first game I started out with, which was the Until Dawn game, which the Until Dawn game is kind of like a House of the Dead style shooter in which you're always moving forward and you just pretty much your only goal is to shoot enemies. I was lucky because that game started out slow, so you could kind of get used to it and look around and all that stuff. I guarantee that when people put it on, the first thing that they do is just kind of walk around and just kind of look, because that's for a lot of the games we played, that was the big thing for me where I was just I wasn't even playing the games as much as I would like look around at the different objects and stuff.
You were
like
looking
that.
around, enjoying the environments, and seeing how it's like, man, I can't believe you can do this in this world, and I can't believe you can pick up a pen, you can pick up an item. It's just so much randomness to the VR world that you can do that you wouldn't believe until you actually put the headset on and try it like you did. Like watching you and Parker's expressions, like you're facing, you're laughing, you're having fun. Like it was a good time.
Well, and that's really interesting part is the stuff with the VR. You have very menial tasks that you would never think would matter in other games. Like in a normal game, you would never be like, pick up this item. You're just like mashing X because it doesn't matter. But like you pick up an item in VR and you're like, whoa! Like one of the games on PlayStation VR Worlds, which is kind of like a big glorified demo kind of, almost like the Wii Sports of the system. You pick up a gun with your one hand and you pick up a clip with the other and you put it together. And stuff like that's just, it's like, I guess we had 2 different nights that we played it, and it's still, after this time, it still like very got me like, I was still like in awe by it,
Yeah.
It was still like, really big to me. But you've played a lot more than I have. Do you still have that feeling of being in awe when you play it, or is it more like, are you getting to the point where it is like, not fun? It's still fun, but is it more like you're used to it, so it's less like, oh, I'm in awe every time I put it on?
I'm used to it, but every VR game has a different experience. For instance, like I played the Resident Evil, it scared me, I enjoyed it. I played Until Dawn, that was fun, like a House of Dead, you said. VR Worlds, there's so many different games in there, it's a sample demo. There's other games I haven't played, but every game that I played feels different and more exciting. Like it's just something like the environments is a big key in the VR games. Like when you look around, you really feel like you're there. So no matter what game you pick up and play, you're gonna enjoy it no matter what. Even if you go back and play the same game, you'll feel a different vibe than what you did before. Like, did you feel any difference with some of the games you went back and played?
The second time we did Batman, I was more used to it, but that allowed me to like understand better what was going on. So like if the Batman game, which we'll go into the different games here,
like you get used to the same things, but at the same time every time you play it you feel a little different.
Yeah, every game that we popped in, even the different demos and whatever, were like very different, and it was like I think the fact that it's VR, every style of game like it feels different. It's weird, It just feels more, I don't know, authentic or whatever the case. So yeah, I've only done it 2 times, but
I did like Resident Evil like 5 or 6 times, and every time I went back, it felt the same, but it felt a little different because I was still like in the VR world. It felt cool, it felt exciting. It still felt scary. I'm gonna tell you that right now. It still felt scary, but when you do play some games over and over, it feels the same, but you still feel immersed in the game because again, the environment takes over a big key part in VR.
Let's talk about some of the games that are out there so far. Now, we by no means have played all of them, and we haven't gotten to the point yet where we've downloaded any indie titles. So the only ones we're talking about right now are ones that we happen to have physical copies of. There's a lot of indie ones out there for it. So like I said, there's this big scene that we're, that's another thing that's exciting. We haven't even, begun to scrape the surface of all the indie stuff. So the first one that I played was that Until Dawn, and like I said, it's your House of the Dead style, like you're always moving on a rail kind of shooter. And they literally set it up like kind of like it's like a carnival, but you're also like on a roller coaster of sorts.
Yeah.
Like a very slow, at times moving roller coaster. And it's a shooting game, so it was cool to instantly see like the thing that blew my mind is you look down and you kind of like see your chest as if it were you, and when you move your arms around, it like that's a move game. That's a game using move controllers. And when you move your arms around to have the guns moving around, because it's like a 2-handed shooting game, you can, it's just really cool to see like your arms move around. It's just neat, and that's something that is still, I think, is really neat no matter how many times I see it so far. Is that was cool. So not a super long game,
No, it's a good maybe hour and something.
Yeah, but games like that, games like House of the Dead games shouldn't be long, or else they get a little monotonous. It's only $20 brand new, and I would say that particular one I had a good time with. I don't know if I would personally play it again too much because it got a little hard and a little annoying at times. But like to get me into the experience, I really liked it.
Yeah, I liked it. First time, it felt like a roller coaster. When you're sitting there, you really do feel like you're in a roller coaster. Then you get used to it, and you're like, man, this is crazy.
That's something we'll go into a little bit later. But yeah, like you feel like you're moving when the coaster's moving. You feel it, and when the enemies appear, out of nowhere, you kind of feel it. And if they hit you from the side and you're not looking at them, you like almost feel it. Like it's like very. It's very bizarre. It's hard to explain the first time that you go down on the roller coaster, and like your stomach does kind of drop. Honestly, it really does.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like a huge like drop. So that was Until Dawn. The Batman game, we are going to. I think Parker and I have plans because we're doing all the other Batman games.
Yeah, I would save that stuff for when you guys do that.
We'll we'll go into it in a later episode, but that was a great experience, and we'll tell you why. In a future episode, and exactly why that
was actually my second game I ever played, and once he explains to you guys in his podcast or that you're gonna know why.
Yeah, and it was funny because we played Until Dawn. I beat Until Dawn. Then Parker was playing Resident Evil 7 and just messing around. Obviously, we already played Resident Evil 7 without the VR, so it's not like we were gonna play the whole way through. So he was just messing around at key parts where we had saves, and he was having a good time. And then we popped in the Batman VR, and it was just like. So immersive, like the world, like this is the big thing, and this is going to be my next question. Is what are you looking forward to, and whatever. The world that they built in this Batman game was awesome. Like you felt like you felt like you were Batman.
It when I played it, I felt like that too.
You felt like you're in Gotham. You felt like you're in the Batcave and all that. So like I said, we'll explain exactly why. We're going to go into much greater detail on that one in a further episode, but like that gives me great hope for the VR that they can make games that world build that you're like, I am this person,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to games down the road being, specific ways. We'll talk about that then too, but
I could imagine like a Half-Life kind of game. That's a first-person shooter for the PC. It's set in this like almost like a 1984 kind of world where like Big Brother's watching you and whatever, and like that in VR, just walking around and messing around would be cool. Or like a Last of Us style game, like not even just necessarily zombies, but like a sneaking kind of whatever kind of thing going on. They really could do it.
There's a couple indie titles. I'll let Spencer get more into. I haven't played enough, but I have played a couple, and there's more shooters. There's more different things you can do. Like you're hoping to see. There's actually indie titles kind of like that. So I'll let you. Eventually, we'll probably do another VR night, and I'll let you try some of that.
Yeah, sure.
And then you can do a second impressions of this. But
the other big one that we played is the PlayStation VR Worlds. Like I said, this is kind of like the Wii Sports of the system. If you remember when the Wii came out, Wii Sports, because the Wii with the motion controller was as I would say revolutionary as the VR is now, because it was different. It was so different, and it showed you in like somewhat simplistic games like what the Wii could do. And that's what the PlayStation VR Worlds does as well. So there are 5 different games on it. We're just going to really quickly glance over them. You have a game called Ocean Descent. That's not really so much a game as it is like...
That's like a tech demo.
It's like a tech demo.
When you get the VR, that's like one... I recommend if you ever get a VR, because when you buy the bundle VR, you get VR Worlds with it. Or if you buy the headset by itself, you get the demo. And that's in there. So what I recommend doing if you first play VR is put your VR on... Try that tech demo of the game that Spencer just mentioned, the under the water one. Try that first. That'll give you an idea of the graphics of what the VR is capable of.
And that one's nice and easy because it's like you are essentially just dropped down in the water in one of those like steel cages. So you're just looking around. You don't interact with anything. You don't do anything. You're just kind of watching what's going on. So it gives you an idea. It's not moving fast, so you're getting motion sick. It's not anything like that. So, like I said, it's not really necessarily a game, but, like, the world that they create in it is cool.
Yeah.
If they had a game like that where you could also like swim around and do stuff, that would be
that'd be
awesome.
insane.
I mean, clearly.
But like I said, it's basically a tech demo to give you a feel of the VR.
Yep. Next up, you have a game called Danger Ball. Essentially, it is, if you guys ever played back in the day, there was a game on the free computer game sites called Curveball. I'm taking myself back. I don't know if you ever played that.
No,
it's
I've
like
never
in school
played
and
that.
stuff like that. It's essentially like you just like, it's a 3D space and you have to get the ball past the guy on the other side, and it's just almost like Pong. It's like Pong, but
I was
going
gonna
to
say, did you feel like Pong, but in 3D?
And if you hit the ball a certain way, it curves and whatever. So curveball. Like I said, this one, the Danger Ball, essentially you use only your head and your face to, look around and stuff like that. And it's cool. If you push your head forward, you put extra oomph on the ball. If you turn your head to the side, you kind of give it like a little bit of a sideways spin. So it's a neat thing. It's obviously, you're not going to play it more than 15, 20 minutes.
It's another tech demo to show you how the head movements are in VR, to show you, like, to get used to, like, you can move your head left, right, forward, backwards, all around, to give you an idea of other games.
But for a tech demo, kind of thing, it's like really,
Yeah,
really cool.
it's a fun game.
Yep. So those were two pretty simple ones. Now the third, that out of these 5 games, 3 of them are generally really simple and 2 are much more advanced. The third of the simpler ones is called VR Luge. Luge is I guess you would call it a sport where you're laying down almost on a really long skateboard, and you're going downhill, and it gets really fast, in real life. And I tried it just about 20 minutes ago, and I probably played like 30 seconds, and I was feeling very, very motion sick.
Yeah,
I
tried it later on after I played other VR games. I try to avoid those games, and we'll probably talk about that why. But yeah, that is one game when you first get the demo or the actual physical VR world, I would recommend not to try that right away. Just build yourself up with the VR to get used to it, and then maybe try it. Like you said, you felt sick after like 30 seconds of it. Because you were going really fast down a hill, and you're just like moving your head, and you're like,
yeah, and you move to the left and right by moving your head, and I couldn't even finish a race. It was brutal.
And you have cars coming at you, and you're just like, please don't let
I
it hit
felt
me.
it. Honestly, at this point, I'm still kind of feeling it. Like, truth be told, like like my stomach did not feel good. So you have 2 more of the major games on that. You have the London Heist. It's a cool little like gangster kind of London heist, film kind of thing. A lot of it's not a ton of interaction. You're able to like pick up your gun, and it's mostly a shooting game. And they'll say something like, open up these drawers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you can kind of do that and see how you can open up drawers and pick up keys and all this stuff. Oddly enough, I did not get to finish that one. I don't know if it was my PS4 or whatever, but it kept loading up one scene where clearly you're supposed to be doing something, but it kept loading it up and just like nothing was appearing on the screen.
Yeah.
So that was weird. I mean, we did that a couple times, and it just,
it's just
weird.
one of those weird things. I mean, the game's not bad. I watched my friend play it. He likes it. The coolest thing in the whole game is you can smoke a cigar and you can blow it out your mouth and actually.
Yeah, I don't know how
they
they did. Like, you literally pick up in one hand the lighter, then you pick up the cigar, you put the cigar up to your mouth, you put the lighter up there, and then the next time you blow out, like physically in real life, like you go, the smoke comes out, and that's pretty cool. I mean, it's silly, but it was pretty cool. So I don't think I was missing much. It's not like the game probably is only 30 minutes long.
Yeah, it's a very short game.
I'm sure I'm not missing anything crazy in terms of story or anything.
No, it's an okay short game.
The very last one. This one is a really cool idea. It's called Scavenger's Odyssey. Essentially, you're just this alien guy in space, and you're on this like kind of like mech. So obviously it's a first person because it's VR. So it's a first person mech game where you are able to, you use the controller, you're able to run around in this mech. So you can run around, you can turn your head, you can shoot stuff, you can grab stuff with this like grapnel beam. I got about 15-20 minutes into this one, but then you get to a part where you're like jumping. You have this like big moon jump between asteroids, and that got me really.
Yeah, I did a good half an hour and I took the headset off and I was sweating and I'm like, no, never again am I doing this one. I really wanted to enjoy that game because I like, space movies and stuff like that, and I really wanted to enjoy it, but it's just one of those games that I highly recommend to avoid when you first play VR. Just try something else.
Yeah. Like I totally agree with that. Like I said, it was a cool idea, but I definitely got very not feeling well. I had to like I was already sitting down, but I had to like lay back for a couple minutes because it was like a little much.
Yeah, that's the nice thing. You should quick note is you can actually sit and play these games. You don't have to stand up. You don't have to like stand in your living room and move around with the games. You can actually sit in a chair where you feel safe and comfy, and you can actually play pretty much every VR game you come across.
Yep, and you have others like Batman that gives you the choice to either stand or sit. And after I played it both times, sitting and standing. After doing the standing one, I will agree that it was just a little bit of a better experience. I mean, I did them both ways and it was fine.
Yeah.
But the standing seemed a little more like natural because, well, again,
yeah,
I
you guys will get into that when you do
it felt a little more natural. So, overall, from what I played, the best game would be the Batman. Although, besides some of the tech demos on the VR world, it was a cool experience. I know there's a fair share of other physical release titles that we haven't messed around with. There's some like Robinson The Journey, which seems like a big adventure game.
I did a little bit of that, not too much. We're getting Farpoint is going to be the newest one eventually. We're going to get that.
Yeah, so that one seems like a sure thing. Sorry about that phone there, folks. George is not going to be on this podcast.
I'm sorry, I
messing.
couldn't.
I'm messing. So, yeah, but like, and that's another one. Farpoint that's coming out sometime this year. That they like have this like gun accessory, and that one seems like kind of what everyone is like really looking forward to, like a big open world kind of shooter kind of thing.
Yeah, like another rail shooter, but you're obviously a character. I don't know too much about the game. I'm really excited to pop it in and play it because I like to do. If I'm really excited about a game, I don't look up anything about it. I just want to know from first experience.
Right. And I mean, hopefully it's cool because if they have another really big game that's like an absolute system seller, then they could be doing pretty well.
Oh, it'll
there.
help the VR.
Now, one other thing I want to go over real quick, and we mentioned it just a couple minutes ago, which is why I want to, go into this topic, is the motion sickness part. So this is definitely going forward as a thing, as the PlayStation VR. Motion sickness is a big thing because, like I said, 2 of the 5 games on PSVR Worlds, I literally could not finish if I wanted to. Like, it was just brutal.
Oh, there's games that I have seen and I played. On the VR demos, there's an actual racing game. You actually sit in the car and you can look around, but when you're racing, you will feel really sick. Even if you drive if you drive a car every day, Spencer, you would still feel like this is too much. Yeah,
and it's something that like, I've talked to a couple people about it. It's like, well, is this something they have to worry about? Is this something that, they have to fix? Or is this something that as people get more used to the VR, imagine a couple years from now, how like we might come home once in a while and, a couple times a week and just pop on our PS4 for a couple hours.
Yeah.
But what if we're to the point in the future where that's VR, where like every day from work you come home and you play an hour of VR? If we get to that point, maybe it's to the point where people would be able to like not feel it anymore. But the way it is right now, and for all the people that we've talked to, I don't think Parker's played any of those, but I think he was like agreeing with us.
I think he'll agree. I mean, if you get a VR, build yourself up to playing some of those games, try them, but be warned. Even on the box and everything, it warns you in the beginning of the screen that you will get motion sickness from some games.
Yeah, and it's definitely, I don't know what the answer is for that one. I think what they're doing right now is good in that they're starting, because it's a completely new way to play a game, completely new.
Yeah.
That they're starting out simple, the Batman game is very simple in the way you move around, and that's good because if it was literally Batman Arkham Knight, and you're literally like away
grappling to another thing. Oh,
you're driving the Batmobile, you're flying around the city. Like, I literally would not be able to play that game right now. Maybe in a year, if I get a VR and I play like once a week, maybe I'll be used to it. I don't know. Or unfortunately, it's one of those things where like there are a lot of people, or maybe all people will never get to that point. Where they're able to like play a full Halo game, jump around, go crazy, shoot stuff, turn around 360, whatever.
That'd be way too much to handle.
Who knows at this point? But it's definitely a big thing because again, if they're like, oh, that Farpoint game, you could get that game, and just be like, play it for 5 minutes and be like, I can't play it. I get too sick. And then you could try, over and over again, and maybe you eventually get a little better, but you're always like, well, I'm kind of sick, So it's a big thing. Again, I don't know exactly what they need to do about it, but it is a big thing. So one of the last things we want to talk about is going into the future, stuff that we want to see out of the VR. Maybe different genres, maybe different games. I'll start with mine. Clearly I think the VR lends itself for sports games. I think that would be really cool.
There are some sports, like there's a basketball one that you can play in VR and you can actually shoot the basketball. The thing I see with VR is there's so much potential with the VR because, yes, it's a new product. Even though it's been out for maybe, 2 years, would say?
Oh, no, the VR? I mean, the PlayStation VR?
The PlayStation VR.
Oh, like 4 or 5 months. It came out in, November.
I thought it was, at least a year.
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, other VRs have been out, but they're not as, big. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Anyways, like I said, it has good potential to do more. They haven't probably even, unlock the full ability of it, kind of like how PS3 and PS4, they took a while for them to unlock the ability. PS4 is still going there, but I want to see more shooter games. Horror games is one of the big key things for VR. I feel like if there's more horror scary games, that it's gonna be something, it'll draw people to it. Like Unto Dawn, you kind of like that game, correct?
Yeah, but that's not necessarily a horror game. Any game that's like a House of the Dead is not super horror. I mean, Outlast Trinity just came out. If they could put out a game like an Outlast, even if it was just jump scares and whatever, it would draw a lot of people in.
I would personally love to see a Silent Hill or a Fatal Frame on the VR.
Yeah, I mean, something like the Fatal Frame would make a lot of sense, and I think they still make those in Japan. So, yeah, I mean, those would be good, and I really think horror. I definitely agree. Horror would bring a lot of people in because I feel like without Resident Evil coming out on the VR, that it would have sold way less VRs.
That is true.
I absolutely feel that way. Even though it's not the best game on the system, I feel like it was one of the ones that got people to, get
that's why I bought a VR. As soon as I saw the trailer at E3 and then they're like, it's VR, I'm like, I gotta get a VR. Yeah. Just hands down, gotta get a VR.
And something like a sports game, probably right now, if we search, there's a lot of indie titles that are very simple, shooting a basketball. But I'm talking, in the future, being a player and, guarding and rebounding and passing and not running, but you know what I mean, playing the whole game. Or football, one where you're the quarterback and maybe you can be the receiver. I don't know how they would do it, but I think if you would come out with and for sports, because people really like realism in sports, you couldn't have it be weird or just all you do is shoot basketball. It's a real thing, Yeah.
They could do a boxing game actually because of
cool.
Move controllers.
Sure.
You could just you're the boxer and you can just start swinging.
And if they could make that, I mean, that's what they did for the Wii Sports. If they could make it a very realistic thing, especially, I can't imagine in VR, because sometimes when, characters get really close to you in the VR, you feel it. I can't imagine, a punch coming in towards your face. It would be, crazy.
Even if they did it a Punch-Out style. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So, we're definitely, I think all three of us, Parker played with us on the, the other day and a little bit earlier today. I think we're all on the same page that we're, very excited with what we see so far. But my big worry with Sony is they've done this before. When the PlayStation Move came out for the PS3, it was a big thing for 6 months to a year, and then it died.
That is very true. When I did get it, I felt like there might be a chance that the VR could be really popular. Because, again, there might not be a lot of people that have a VR because of the fact that it's not a cheap device to have for a system. It costs just as much as a PS4.
Right. But, it's... I don't know. It's interesting as far as that's concerned. So that actually leads me into my last topic, which is is it worth it at this point? George alluded to it. The PS4 at this point is a $500 piece of technology. Now that $500 gets you everything you need besides the PS4, of course.
Yeah.
You get the headset. You get a game with it. You get the the move control, all that stuff.
You basically get if you buy the $500 bundle, which I don't even know if you can buy them anymore, you get the camera, the 2 move controllers, and you get the VR world. Now, when I went to buy mine, unfortunately, I couldn't get that, so I actually had to buy the $400 version. Then I had to buy a camera, and there's $60 brand new, and the move controllers can cost you from 25 used to maybe 50 to 100. It just depends on where you go.
Right. So it is an expensive proposition. Now, I look at it right now where I personally, with the way it is, especially now that I've played the Batman game, would not purchase it at this point. But if they came out with a couple big titles that I would definitely consider doing it.
Yeah.
I think one of the big things, it's obviously the money's a thing, but I think one of the big things for me is like, I worry that a lot of the stuff I would want to do, I would not be able to because I would get too motion sick.
That is true.
So like it, even in a perfect world where money isn't a thing, it doesn't matter, right? You're like, I don't care what anything costs, I'll get it if I can use it. I still might not be able to get it, because I would be so limited in the games if I can't get to the point where I'm able to handle. I play a Silent Hill game and you're like, running, well, Silent Hill doesn't exist anymore, but a horror game, and you're running around and whatever, and you're turning your head and you're hiding, and like the whole time I'm feeling like I'm gonna be sick. It's like, well, I can't play that. I'm not gonna make myself sick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's a big thing for that. And I mean, would you say that it's worth it?
As a person that owns it, like I said, I bought it for a specific game, but when I went to go buy it, I had to decide, is this worth buying it or not? Basically, if you know a friend like Spencer knows me, he asked me, hey, can I try your VR to see how it is? If you know somebody that owns a VR, or you can go somewhere they have a tech demo of VR, try it first before you go to buy it. I kind of stress that due to the fact that, again, money, and it is a very expensive piece of equipment for your system.
And it's a very specific thing, too. I mean, we had a VR traded in, and one of our good customers picked it up because he's a huge Resident Evil guy, huge.
Oh, he got it for Resident Evil.
And he got it for Resident Evil, but the thing is, he actually had to return it a couple days later because he just couldn't handle it, the motion sickness thing. So he was like, I hate to do this, but I can't play it. Like, I can't. And Resident Evil isn't even, excuse me, one of the fastest games.
No,
there are way faster games. So if you can't handle Resident Evil because you're getting motion sick, you can't handle the VR unless you, I guess, work yourself up to it. So again, I'm glad it's out, and I'm actually more optimistic now that I've played a lot of the games for it. But again, my big worry, if you were to say, is it worth it? My big worry is, okay, what's Sony going to come out with it? What games are going to come out with it?
At this point, if I went to go buy another VR, let's say I didn't have the one I have, and I actually tried it from a friend, I'd probably highly recommend do not buy it unless you feel comfortable with purchasing it, because to me right now, I play it once in a great while. Besides when I played it with you, I think it's been like maybe a month since I played it. So it's kind of like a novelty item. You get it as a piece of accessory for your system to have like an add-on or something to it.
Well, and it's also one of those things, now that I think about it, there's a lot of things you have to hook up for it. There's a lot of pieces for it. So like if you just get home from a hard day at work and you just want to sit down for a little to play a game, I don't think that's going to be the first thing that pops your head. It's like, now I need to sit up instead of lay down on my couch. Now I need to set all this stuff up, get these controllers, all this. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes I come home and I'm just tired as heck, and like, I just, whatever game's in the PS4, I just turn it on. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
I'll finish
Once you
Outlast,
put the VR helmet on, you're pretty much blind. You can't see where anything is. So you want to put the game in first, put the controllers next to you, turn it on, put it on your head, make sure it looks right on the TV, start the game, go from there. So yeah, it is kind of annoying sometimes when you have to hook it up and unhook it. And
I mean, overall the experience is fun, but like I said, you gotta. Sony's done this for years. Well, they'll come out with a really good idea, and then they'll just kind of not, PlayStation 4 camera when the PS4 first came out was like kind of a big thing because they had all these like different like almost webcam sessions and whatever you could do, and like live from PlayStation, I think it was called.
I didn't even know they did that.
But PS4 cameras, people were looking for a real long time, and now I don't know anyone who uses a PS4 camera besides to do
the VR. Yeah,
so,
that's pretty much how it tracks the.
And again, I could go through Sony's track record for years and years. So many things where they come out with these ideas, and then it's like, they didn't really support it too long. So again, the fact that people are putting $500 down on these and getting all these accessories and stuff, I really hope that they do. I'm gonna remain non-committal and say if you try a friend's or try a store's or whatever and you can handle it and you play one of those games on PS Worlds and you can handle it, I would say that it's worth it. As long as you're like really into that kind of stuff. But absolutely don't make the decision without trying it.
Yeah, I highly recommend
then
that.
It's a whole mess of trouble.
Yeah, I agree. So. I would highly recommend trying a VR if your friend has it or if you know somebody or a store before you decide, let me go buy this $500 equipment. And the other thing is look up the games that are out for it, because there's not a lot of physical games, or maybe like we'll say rough like maybe 7 to 8 physical games, and then the rest are all digital. So I would highly recommend, again, to try it out before you buy it. And if you feel comfortable, like Spencer said, with the motion sickness on the simple games, then it might be worth it to you.
So I think that's about it for this episode. I do hope that in the future we do another PlayStation VR, just general, where we talk a little bit more about like the indie games and hopefully, the big games that have come out, for it, the Farscape and all that kind of stuff. So thank you again for being on, George. We appreciate it. And thank you out there in YouTube land for listening. Have a great one.